Hi, this is a presentation that's talking about my placement regarding sports development in action. So, the placement that I had, I worked within the SU for a program called Get Into, and the scheme itself was refugee football or friendly football, as we like to call it. So, just a brief summary of what we do within the project is. The duties that we have is so we arrive at the SU, the student union, and to meet and greet the participants that would be there for tonight's session, and then from then on we travel to Yukon Sports Arena on a free bus, so they wouldn't have to pay any transport. Uh, and then once we get there, we find out which grids we're on. So once we direct them to what grids they'd go on, they would go on, get the right footwear on. A lot of them start to do praying, depending on the religion, and basically just warm themselves up in a way, get themselves ready so they can perform the activities. Whilst we're doing that, myself and Jake and Joe, the other volunteers there, we would get the footballs, get the bibs. We would count how many numbers there are. So then we would say whether we need one grid or not. If there's enough for only three teams and it's a five-a-side pitch, we split up into three teams, two be on, one be off, and then we just do winner stays on. Or if not, we'll separate ourselves. Like say one of us, or depending on the numbers, we need to play or not, or just officiate, we'd separate ourselves so we could be able to work on one grid and the other grid. We just get that really. It's all about really just getting the game flowing, ensuring having a lot of fun, getting a lot of the ball. If we're playing, if us volunteers are playing, we'd encourage them. We'd encourage to get them involved. So we'd pass the ball from a lot, or we'd go in net. So they've got as much outfield time as possible, and also we'd officiate it so it's running smoothly. And then so we'd last for 2 hours. So at first we started at 4, we did it till 6, and then because of university for me and Jake, we started 6. We went from 6 to 8, so we had to check the bus times so so it'd be accessible, which it was. And then so after the session, what we'd do is we'd finish 15 minutes early, so they can have a little chat with them saying well done, say what's happened in the next few weeks, whether it's going to be on or not, or what's going to change, and then they can gather their belongings, and then we'd make the bus in time, because obviously refugees, as I mentioned in my last sports development presentation and my development plan, refugees they get less than £40 a week to live off, so they can't afford the taxis. Obviously, if there's so many of them as well, it's just not worth it, and it's good for the university. It's good for them to save money by getting on the bus there and back, and then they can just walk home, and it's not that far at all. But the taxi, you got to. With a project such as this with refugees, you've got to make it accessible. You've got to make it feasible. So, bibs, footballs, transport, we provide that, which is essential. So another thing we had to do for this was an annotated bibliography. So what was this? Finding articles or books or anything that would relate to our our placement. So the first one that I looked at was a big thing was it's a book called Understanding Human Values by Milton Rockich, which is basically talking about migrants and their identity and their heritage. And within the book, I found a reference saying migrants starts with value systems already established, and these may be difficult to change. Their values are formed and modified within the new society. However, it also goes on to say that their parents may pass on a legacy of national traditions and heritage, but this indirect experience of life with a new culture has to compete with the overwhelming strength of the children's own direct experience of life within a new culture. So what it's basically saying is these refugees are from all over the world to different countries in Europe. If they're going to start a family there, then obviously they're going to meet people who may not be the same language or nationality as them, have the same language or same nationality as them. So when they start a family, if they've got children, they're they're gonna want to keep that heritage up that the parents set them from start off. Also, when we're playing football with them, we've said obviously they're going to speak in their own language to maintain their identity. They're going to have jokes within their peers that we're not going to understand because it's all about a legacy. It's all about keeping up their identity. Because obviously it's going to be hard for them. And also going into one of my other annotations, which talks about a language barrier. When you go into a new country, the language is going to be. It's always hard to learn a new language because you're going to adapt to new things, and obviously you want to go around and if you want to ask for food, you want to know where something is to buy food or to go and buy clothes or just everyday life and just doing recreational activities. You've got to learn the language and you've got to ask people where they can direct you and you've got to find your feet. Learning a language for these refugees is going to be so hard because although English is one of the most common languages used in the world, it's still going to be really hard. And this reference that I found in this book, it says, although the acquisition of a new language is one of the most important factors in acculturation, surprisingly it has been found that the attendance in language skill classes was a significant predictor of psychological stress for Southeast Asian refugees. So here, just by going off that, learning something, especially as hard as a language, can be very stressful, and obviously it can cause anxiety, it can cause emotional damage, obviously because you're just trying to fit in. But if you're struggling to do it, it's just going to be one big nightmare. So it's up to us as volunteers to encourage them, make sure they keep them going, and showing them that they can do it, and whatever little language they know, it's good to praise them. Another article that I saw was also this is by Judy Wright. It's called The Left Out Child. It talks about friendship, although this book in particular talks about from a children aspect. Obviously, any walk of society, it's all about acceptance and fitting into any environment, whether you've been there from the start or you adjust into a new environment. And obviously, refugees are going to be the atmosphere, the society, the new culture that they're going to be just completely thrown into. It could have a massive effect on them, and obviously they're going to experience different things and how people go about in their lives. So obviously they might not be with all their friends. They might not be with any friends at all from where they came from initially. So making friends is going to be very difficult, especially if they're struggling with in terms of obviously with the language barrier. So Judy Wright, a reference that I put, I said a quote that I found and I picked. It says, so I said in the section that I was talking about, I said the section transit and moving speaks about how frequent families move house, which made me think in a way when refugees move to a different country that could be on a different continent. Then Wright goes on to say it puts new demands on acceptance at the very time that a child feels the most sad and anxious. So obviously I'm not so taking that and coinciding that with the refugees. Obviously they're going to feel very anxious. They want to feel like to see someone maybe if they're playing at refugee football and they've seen, say, if someone wants, as the football's gone over the fence and someone's asking them to kick it back to them, instead of just kicking it back to them, they could maybe have a conversation with them. But they may be conscious of the language, or they might have different views on where they're from, saying they might not be accepted. So there's going to be that sad, there's going to be that overwhelming emotion, there's going to be that anxiousness there. But still, it's up to us as volunteers to accept them for who they are and to make friends with ourselves, because if we give them the confidence and the pickup for, say, us, for myself and Jake and Joe, we can be their friends and have a normal conversation with them and see them as any other normal person, not just a participant for our volunteering. It goes a long way, and it can give them the confidence to meet new people around their area where they're living. Another thing that instantly I thought was important was also a way of self-belonging, and an article that I think it's a book that called A Small Learning Community Intervention Targeting Sense of Belonging the impacts on student engagement and staff perception, and the influence of autonomy. Something that I thought straight away was when I came to university. Obviously, I'm only from Bolton, and obviously I'm a northerner, and I'm going to be I'm 40 minutes down the road in Preston. It can be an overwhelming feeling when you realise you're going to wake up the next day and you're not going to be in your own comfort, your own bed. You're going to have to meet new people, and you're going to settle yourself in. You're not living with your parents anymore or your siblings. You're living with family. You're living with people you're going to call your family. You're going to be living with completely different people who are all over the country, or even they could be international students. So it's up to you to get involved with them and make that sense of belonging. And for refugees, it's different from me being 40 minutes down the road and then being 3,000 miles away, 4,000 miles away. They want that belonging. And in a reference that I picked, saying in a sense of community, membership is the feeling one has of being part of a group, and therefore that she belongs or has that sense of belonging. That's what refugee football could have for them. That's what the friendly football could be for them. That 2 hour slot on a Tuesday night, playing football with people who are their own nationality, their own race, playing football, having fun, enjoying themselves. That 2 hours could mean so much for them for the rest of the week, and then that rest of the week they could feel isolated and they could feel lonely. So it's up to us as volunteers to go that extra mile, to put out what we do, what we do as refugee football. What can we do? Can we integrate the UCLan students or anyone around Preston with the refugees? Can we get that integration and can we set up friendship? Can we get them feeling a sense of belonging so afterwards they don't speak to anyone or they don't hang out with anyone for the rest of the week? Can they make friends? So can they make connections so afterwards they can meet up and do other recreational activities and hang out and go on nights out, express a social life and do other things? And one final thing that is, for me, is always important is exercise and staying active, having that good frame of mind, and having understanding the benefits of exercise. So in this book that I read from Birdie Tal was a promotion of physical capacity to enhance a person's ability to cope with the physical demands of his or her lifestyle. So obviously, for a refugee, having that anxiety and the anxiousness of the lacking sense of belonging, or worrying about making friends, or worried about not getting used to the language, or struggling with connecting with their identity, that having that heritage of the family that they were given. Also, promotion of mental health. Exercise can help that stress and calm you down, can take your mind off things, can release that anger. Also, gives you the chance of exercise, making friends on a social aspect. So, making friends once you're there, because maybe they might start going to the gym or join another club. They can make friends, so they can create them bonds. Also, reducing the risk of certain diseases, strong diseases, which is always a bonus because it obviously increases your life expectancy. And also the enhancement of recovery from or minimising the adverse effects of an accident, illness or other trauma. For the adult, the reported health-related benefits of exercise are diverse and often interrelated. However, for convenience, they may be considered under the following broad headings. So then, them aspects are very important. It's not just looking at it's looking specifically at adults, but it can also be transferred to anyone. And the refugees who are at our placement, who are at our volunteering, range from around 16 and over. So to sum up, it's important as us volunteers to look at these aspects, to look at these areas that these refugees are going to be struggling with. They're going to be, obviously, we could be completely wrong and they could be doing really well, but there's some out there, not just in Preston, but around Europe, around England in particular, that don't get this opportunity as we're giving to the refugees in Preston. So it's up to us to maintain it, to promote it even more, and to integrate as much as possible to make them adapt to this society so they can call this place home. So I hope you enjoy, and if you've got any comments, feel free to leave a comment below, or yeah, so enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.